voices on another much needed subject, which is cancer. And this time, pediatric cancer, because again, that's something that affects children, and none of us want to ever lose a child. So when you talk about something like this, as I always say, it's a standard line of mine. When tragedy comes, it doesn't ask permission when it knocks on your door. So this series is called Born for a Cure, Voices of Courage. It's going to be stories of pediatric cancer. And we're going to be bringing on anyone and everything that is related to pediatric cancer, whether it's families who've lost or who are still fighting cancer, whether it's scientists, doctors. We're going to educate ourselves on this journey for the next 12 weeks on what pediatric cancer is all about and the different types of pediatric cancer. When I first heard of DIPG, never heard of it before. I heard of it on social media when I connected with Sandeep and his wife when they were trying to treat their son, Neve. And through that journey, I've connected with many people. Today, we begin our first episode, and we're dedicating this episode to Ronil, who lost his life to DIPG, and his parents, very brave parents, are coming on the show to talk about their journey. We're going to understand how this came about, what happened, what was their journey, what was their fight all about, how Ronald fought, and at the end, what has been the outcome. And most people will just simply continue on the journey, suffering and crying, but there are very few families that will actually take that pain and turn it into purpose. And that's what we're going to be doing for the next 12 weeks. So on that note, I'd like to welcome Manisha. Manisha, welcome to the show.
Hi, Renu. Thanks for having us.
And Milan, welcome to the show.
Hi, Renu. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. And again, begin the show with saying I'm very sorry about the loss of Ronil. I know there's no words that can give you comfort, but to know that hopefully on this journey and going forward, we can all join hands and make a difference in helping you and helping other families fight that cause. We'll also be joined later with Sandeep, and he will come on board later on to join us in this conversation. So without any further ado, thank you for tuning in. If you have anything to share, you can tune in on Facebook, you can share your comments, or you can reach out later. We'll also be giving you links at the end that you can connect with people. So we'll begin with, first of all, I cannot even begin to imagine the loss that you've gone through. So my first question to you, Manisha, as mom, we always have a bias towards mom. How did you find out that Ronald had this condition? I mean, what was going on? What were the signs, symptoms? How was he as a child? Was he healthy? So you can give us a little bit of the background.
Yeah, Ronnie was born in 2003, and he was totally healthy child. The pregnancy was all fine, no problems. He was growing up fine. He was going to school. He was athletic. He was in sports and everything. And then when he was just going to turn 12, 1 month before his 12th birthday, he started complaining of headaches. And those headaches became very frequent, like 2-3 times a week. And also we took him to the pediatrician, and they said, no, it's nothing. Just keep monitoring him. Maybe it's, he's playing a lot of video games or basketball or early puberty. So we're not going to do a CAT scan because risk of radiation is high and all that. Mm-hmm. And we even took him to the eye doctor and everything, but all the doctors said, no, everything is fine. And, we're not doing a MRI and all. And then 1 month later, in 2016, January 7th, he was getting ready to go to school. It was a normal day. We were getting ready to go to work and all. And he just collapsed right in front of our eyes in the morning. And that's when they did the MRI, and they said that he has a tumor, and he was in a coma that time. He was on life support, and they said he's not going to wake up, and he just has 1 week left to live. So like just in a blink of an eye, we were brushed from him brushing his teeth to him in the ICU it just happened like that with nothing, no warning. And just like that, it was told that, yeah, he's not waking up, because the tumor was in the brainstem and he had a stroke, and they said that it's out of control now, and this tumor does not have any cure, and it's a terminal cancer, and he's not going to make it. But
so he had never had headaches prior to this. It was
nothing, no headaches, nothing. He was totally fine, no headaches at all.
So how severe were these headaches? I mean, I'm curious as a child, when a kid says, oh, my head is hurting and stuff, as adults, when I wrap tunnies on my head when my head really hurts, when it's extreme. What about a child? I mean, how did he express the pain for you to consider taking him in?
I think the main concern was the pain was not that severe. The headaches were severe, but we would give him medicine and it would subside or he would sleep and, but the frequency was the problem because it was very frequent and usually he never had headaches and then the frequency like 3 times a week was pretty frequent and that was concerning.
So he was diagnosed, did they tell you that this was DIPG?
Right away, they did not diagnose it. They told us it was GBM, which is the adult version of DIPG, which is called glioblastoma. But later on, they changed the diagnosis and said, anyways, they said it's a terminal 4, stage 4 cancer right from the onstart. So it doesn't even matter what diagnosis. They said none of these cancers have any cure. It's in the brainstem. So yeah, it's DIPG. It was DIPG later on.
So Milan, my question to you is, at that particular moment, you went from like he was brushing his teeth to now you're being told that he's not going to make it. And you're completely powerless. What were the first thoughts in your head? What's the first thing that happened?
First is that, it's unbelievable. It's like, there must be something wrong with the diagnosis. There's nothing, it could be dehydration. Maybe he just got exhausted and he just collapsed on the floor while getting ready. Okay, maybe that's it. We'll take him to the hospital. I was at work and Manisha called me that we are rushing to the ER. They call the ambulance. I said, okay, maybe he played a lot previous day. And that's where, once we go there and they tell us that, okay, this is something big, there is a lump in his head and you need to go to, a different hospital to get it checked out. And there, when they give the diagnosis, it's hard to imagine and unbelievable. So we had to kind of do a retake, a double take, saying, what is this? Tell us again. But for them, what happens is sometimes in medical field, they lack empathy. So for them, it's a matter of delivering the news, not how to deliver it. Right. And that made it hard for us, especially for Manisha, because the way they said it is that, okay, you know what, you only have 3 days, call everybody from India, and it's hard to wrap your head around it. So the biggest shock was that how can this happen so quickly without us knowing, without knowing any background, and the fact that they're giving us so little time. We did not have time to digest, understand this at all, and they put us into the situation. So that was the most, heart-wrenching moment for us.
So then what? What was the next step?
The next step
was, you told this, now what?
Now, because he had suffered a stroke because of it, so they said, okay, we're going to put him on life support. And, that's how it is. And a few days later, they said he had another stroke. So we're going to actually now, definitely he's not going to wake up. So you should take him off life support, let him go in peace. And we said, no, he's a fighter. He's always been that way. So we had to fight the system, even in the first few days, to tell them that, no, we will wait for him. And then on the 5th day, he was in a coma for the 5 days. On the 5th day, he started waking up and opening his eyes. So we had to convince the doctors that he's still in there, that, we are willing to wait, have him recover, and we are willing to start doing treatments, whatever is needed. But do not give up on him, because we are not going to do that. We will not listen to anyone. So we kind of held our ground, and that is what made a difference in the doctor's thoughts that, we will give this family another chance.
So I'm curious to know, the doctor who told you, called it quits. What did they have to say when Ronil actually woke up after 5 days?
Yeah, as you can imagine, shock and awe is not the least of it, because the same doctor who said that, if Ronnie wakes up and if he recovers, I will retire, because, it's almost like he was 70 years old, the neurosurgeon. He said that, it's like you're going to prove me wrong. And at the end of 6 months after he woke up, he did therapy and he came back and he showed him and surprised him by walking to him, 20 steps, hugging him, talking to him. The doctor was like, okay, I almost have to retire now because I gave my word for it. So he made him eat his words and showed him that do not ever, tell
a family to give up.
Yeah, do not count kids out. Kids are resilient. So do not just put me in the same bucket as every kid that you've seen. And that is the reason what he did later made even a bigger impact on his legacy, that we will share more. But he did a lot more things because he was a lot more stronger than what he looked. And the doctors kind of were in a total awe of that.
So now when Ronald opens his eyes, what were the next steps? Because you wake up after coma and he'd had a stroke. What part of his bodies were functional and what part were not? Manisha?
Yeah, he could only blink his eyes when he woke up, only his eyelids, not a finger, not hands, nothing. He could not, nothing, there's no talk, nothing. And we had to ask him questions, but his brain was totally intact. So we could ask him questions like blink once for yes or two for no, and he would answer all those questions. So that is how we were able to understand that he is all in there and he's there and he's fighting. So it took us like almost 10 days to convince the doctors that please, he's there, let's start radiation, let's start the next treatments because he's here and we want to fight and because we don't want to give up. And once they understood and they were convinced, that's when we started radiation a month later. And till then, that time he was doing physical therapy, we were doing speech therapy, and slowly with the radiation and all. But right straight up from the diagnosis till then, the first 4 months, we stayed the whole time in the hospital for 4 months till we came home.
And then when he came home, was he able to, you mentioned, was he able to walk then when he came home?
No, he was, because the problem was with him, the stroke was impacting his lifestyle more, his condition more than the tumor. The stroke, then right then he was in the wheelchair. But he was trying to walk. He was a fighter. He was working very hard in all the therapies, speech therapy, physical therapy. And he could not, for the first 2 months, he could not even talk or eat. So he would look in the hospital room, he would look at the ads and he would see the food ads and he would be like, I'm craving food because he's not eaten food for a month, 2 months, But he was eventually, once we came home, then he slowly started talking, eating, walking. And by I would say 6 months into it, he was walking with a walker. He was able to climb stairs, and come August when school started, he was able to even go to school. So from the doctors just writing him off, he worked really hard. He and all the therapies and all, and he was able to even go to school in the wheelchair.
Was he ever able to speak again?
Yeah, he was speaking then.
He was
speaking. He had a tracheostomy done,
Uh-huh.
and the tracheostomy was capped also, and he was able to breathe. And he was fine. He was going to school and talking and playing basketball in the school court with his friends.
So I'm just listening to this and I just get overwhelmed. I was even overwhelmed when I listened to Sandeep and Misha when they came on the show, because I can't even imagine. I mean, your kid I see parents with kids get COVID and they freak out. So, you just wonder, how is a family going to deal with something like this? How did he had a sibling, right? He has a younger sibling.
Yeah. So
how did what were the coping skills used there for the sibling to realize and accept that maybe his brother would not be there in a short while?
Right. So I think from the after, once we in the hospital, we had to face a lot of problems, as Milan said, fighting the system, fighting the doctors, because this is all new to us. But we were totally engaged in all of his care, all of his treatments, and understanding, because all of this as information was very new to us, like DIPG word, again, like you said, we've never heard it before. We don't know what it is. So we were researching a lot with our friends, family, everyone. And all of this information was coming our way. But while we were in the hospital, we were not discussing so much with Ronnie. Once we came home, it was him who showed us the way, in him being mature and more understanding and all. We discussed it with him because he wanted to know more about his condition and what it was. And he was also researching. He was almost a teenager by then, so he knew what was going on and I mean, what was going to happen, and he knew it was a terminal cancer and all. But that didn't deter him. I mean, he was like, as a family, then we had the talk with our younger sibling too, with Sahil, and we decided, like, based on Ronnie's will, that what, we will fight. We will continue to fight this, but we will not stop living. We will not stop doing what we're doing, but we will continue. And then for Sahil also, he was 7 at that time, but he was pretty young, but he understood. And I think when something like this happens, you automatically you get the strength from within. So I think in a way Sahil was also pretty he was more understanding. He was not, throwing tantrums, or because we were spending a lot of time with Ronil, hospitals and, doctor visits and a lot of things.
Right.
But he was very understanding, very, doing. And I think the way we coped also is like I would at least set some time apart for Sahil. Like I decided that I will go drop him to school in the morning. Like that 10 minutes would be our time. We would just, I would just be focused with him and, what he was doing throughout the day and how his life was going. So that kind of also gave him that reassurance that, yeah, we're all here still, and, we're a family together.
That's wonderful. I'm very glad that we're going to be actually having Sahil on our show next week, as well as Neve's brother. They'll be sharing their own experiences as siblings as well. So that's wonderful. Milan, how did you cope with the fact that the medical system is not equipped, even now, to deal with the diagnosis of something like DIPG? How did you cope with that? And
Yeah, I think the biggest challenge we had was that the doctors were not aware of this, diagnosis, what to do, because it's so rare. And that kind of threw us off that what is DIPG? Even we don't know. So we had to reach out to other families and other foundations, scour the web, do so many things. So it was the medical system that actually let us down. And coping with the fact was more like actually, now if you don't know it, now you have to figure out everything that is possible that you can to make sure you understand it. So we had to reach out to different places to understand this and, kind of empower ourselves with what is DIPG, what can it do to the kids, what can we do to help the kids. And once we had that, we got our path together so that we can help Ronil. But moving forward, coping with this, if I have to tell other parents or other families that are going through this, would be advocacy. Is like making sure that you advocate for things, because the system is not going to do that. You need to do it for yourself and for your loved one. So make sure that you reach out to as many people as possible, understand what it is, know your facts, and bring them to the table to the doctor, because that's the only way it's going to be easier for the families to kind of get their point across, figure out different options and work as a team. Because when this happens, your spouses, they are dealing with this differently. There could be grief, there could be trauma that you might not understand. So the part is to try to work as a team and explore different choices as to what to do, and let your loved ones know, your kid know that, what, things are okay. We're doing everything possible to handle this, but this is the way it is. It's, you make sure you kind of stay in together, figure out all the things that you can do for yourself to sustain and find your path for it. So that's how you try to cope up with the system. And, you let the doctors and everybody know that there is better ways than just giving up on the patients.
so here you have Ronald a year later, he's going to school, he's starting to talk. So there was hope. And then what took a turn for him to not make it? What happened?
Yeah, so, the hope, at least for this tumor, is that if you do radiation, the tumor kind of grows in size. Shrinks in size. So it kind of gives you more of your abilities back. So, he lost his ability to walk, talk instantly because of the stroke and all.
Mhm.
And over time, we did a couple of radiations. So things got better for him. So it was the honeymoon phase, what they call it, where he could do a lot of things. But then over time, the tumor, given that it's malignant, it's going to take its course. So it ended up growing, and it reached a point that after the second radiation, there was nothing much. The doctors here in US said that, oh, there's not, besides radiation, we're not going to do anything. But, Ronnie said he wants to fight, he wants to live more. So even we figured out we'll do everything possible. So we reached out to a few families who were getting treatments in Mexico, and they were doing innovative treatments like trying to use 6 to 8 drugs together for chemotherapy and immunotherapy and try to see if that works. So we did that for 15 months.
You
And
actually took him to Mexico and went through
yes,
that.
because US said that, sorry, we're not doing anything because we want to try one drug and see if it works for 9 months. And we use the second drug and see for 9 months. So I said, I don't have time for this. I want to see as much as possible that I can do. So we tried this Mexico, irrespective of what the cost it was the community and the families and friends around us that helped us get through this.
But did you not worry that here I am going to Mexico, trying drugs that the US maybe have not approved or are still in process. Did that not concern you a little bit to say, but maybe I'm doing something that I shouldn't be doing?
Given the
I'm
fact
just
that
curious as a parent, I think I'd question and be like, Mexico, really? You know,
yes, exactly. That's what even we thought, that, of all the countries, Mexico.
yeah.
But the fact is that even US said that, yes, it would be good to try multiple drugs, but we don't get approval for it soon enough. So they knew that it's going to be helpful. So we use that as the basis and saying, okay, we'll go to a country that is not waiting for an approval, and they know that it might help. And now that the system has given up on him, he might not have enough time. So we want to give it best that we have. And that's why we were willing to take the risk.
So how long were you in Mexico for?
We were there for 15 months. So we had to go
Oh,
every month for
okay.
15 months.
For
And there
15
was
months.
there was a stretch for like 4 months we were living there. And just to fill it in, that Mexico is unlike anything that I had seen. It's like we'd been to resort towns and all, but living in Mexico like an actual resident and being among the people, it's one of the most warmest countries. The
That's
families, they
wonderful to hear.
took us in, they gave us their houses. They said you can stay as much as you want, and people don't judge you because you're in a wheelchair. The doctors actually touch you and hug you and do things. So
Compassion.
yes,
You
so
felt the compassion that was
yes, the
lacking over here.
compassion. Yes.
So here we are, Manisha. We are trying everything we can. You're on social media, and I believe you connected with the other families, of which one of the families was Sandeep and Misha, right?
Right.
And so did you connect with them while Ronald was around, or was it after he had passed?
That was after Ronald had passed. Ronald
Okay.
passed away in 2018.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was a couple of years later that Neve was diagnosed. And within the week that Neve was diagnosed, Sandeep had reached out to me. And because I was also during that time, trying to, help other parents and, just be there for them and, share our journey with them. And, so that's when me and Sandeep started talking and, comparing notes, or be telling them what next they can do, or what is in there.
So I'll take that as a cue to invite my new co-host with me for my show. Sandeep, welcome to Voices.
Thank you so much.
So I connected with you as well on social media. So there are some good things about social media, I guess. And I connected with you when you were trying for Neve, and I know a lot of the Pleasanton community had come together to meet with you. So thank you for being here, and you've been on my other shows before. So my condolences also go out to you for Neve. I know there's, again, no words that can even, help you with that grief. So you connected with Manisha. You were in the same situation. The only difference was Neve was much younger. He was 4, right, when he was diagnosed. And in my previous show, listeners, if you listen to one of our previous shows, which is on Spotify as well, we talk about the same thing with Neve. He was a healthy child, and then boom, one day, just the whole life turned over. And Sandeep and Misha were also given the same kind of statements in the hospital that the Mehta family heard, which was basically there's no hope and there's no cure. So here you connect with Manisha. What happens?
Yeah, so as she was describing, or Milan was describing, I was actually tearing up because I could remember the exact same sequence of events that happened with us. It wasn't the stroke, but pretty much the similar situation and the outcome. And one of your questions was, how do we change the situation? Is there, what is, if the US health system is equipped to handle this kind of thing? So I have a positive outlook on it. 10 years ago, McKenna Wedzev, she was diagnosed with DIPG, and there was nothing. She lived here in California, but there was nothing. 5 years ago, when Ronil was diagnosed, there were maybe 3 or 4 trials. Right now, I just searched on clinicaltrials.gov, and we have about 35 trials actively recruiting. So the point that I'm trying to make is the research is the only way we are going to get cure.
Right.
Advocacy is the only way we're going to get money to fund that research. And unfortunately, out of the federal government's $100 that go towards research for healthcare, only 1 cent goes towards DMG, DIPG. So we are trying to change that picture. All the 99.9% funding comes from family organizations like ours. And that's why we decided to get together with Neve and Manisha and Milan, and we put our heads together and we're like, we want to change this picture in 3 or 4 different ways. One is advocacy that we spoke about, research, family support, because it's very important. We went through it, so we know how difficult it gets for the family. And lastly, when I speak with people in India, that's close to my heart. I'm connected with about 40 or 50 families back there, and there is absolutely nothing.
And they're also you talk about
It's
families that
exactly
are same
DIPG.
thing.
Yeah, and to our surprise, the numbers are about 7,000 a year, whereas right now in US we know about 350 to 400 cases a year. So there is a large population that's completely ignored. So our hope is that we are trying to start a trial in India through UCSF. So there is a group in UCSF that's trying that on ground, but hopefully very soon we should be able to start something.
So this brings me to turning pain into purpose. We talk about now the Neve Ronil Foundation that you've started. So was this something that Manisha had already started before, or was it something you both came together?
I had started it before.
Okay.
And then along the journey, I asked them if they would be willing to join us. And this was our first time meeting them after Neve passed.
Okay.
And the bond was so immediate and it's very strong. We are almost a family now. So we asked them if they would consider joining. And as Manisha said, when you are in that grieving period, or you don't want to go back to that world, and I was there. You don't want to go back and talk to same people, or similar kind of setup. Even like I remember she walked into the UCSF and wanted to give me food or something, but it must have been so hard for her to walk into the same institution. And when I did that, I realized how painful it is.
Yeah.
So she and Milan obviously discussed that, and then they came on board, and then now we've I think 2 years into it, $250,000 in clinical research that we've supported.
Fantastic.
$35,000 to $40,000 to families in need right now, and our programs are increasing day by day.
So back to you, Milan and Manisha. You've started this foundation. I think you're in your second year. So is it 100%? So no admin costs, nothing? Because a lot of people will ask those questions and say, okay, we have a 501c here. How much of it is admin cost? How much of the money that's raised is actually going towards the cause? If you could explain that.
Yes, actually, there is no admin cost, because all of us, as Manisha, me, Sandeep, Misha, we are doing everything that we can to kind of manage the foundation, and we have a few volunteers and a few board of directors who are helping out.
Okay.
But everything that we earn, every cent, is actually going to 3 things. Like Sandeep mentioned, is to raise awareness, to fund research, and to support families. Because when it hit us, we did not have any support, and we had to reach out at a lot of different places. We're trying to change that to make it easier for people to ask for support. We did not have any easier way to ask for doctors for help. We are making that easier now.
So as somebody sitting out here, if I think with the way the masses think, they're like, all right, you've gone through this major loss. You've never overcome this loss. You have your own jobs, you have your own families, you have your other children to take care of, and you've taken on this giant. This is a huge cause to take over, especially after you've explained that every $100, only 1 cent goes towards the trials. Why? Why are you doing this? This is a huge thing. This is a long-term commitment, a lifetime. Why? I mean, yes, I understand the support, but what's the drive behind this? There has to be another reason behind it. Manisha, I'm going to ask you as a mom. What's the reason?
I think I was, when I wanted to do this is because I wanted to follow the footsteps of Ronil. When he was here, he actually made sure that he donated his tumor to help the other kids coming later on. And he knew what was going to happen to him, but that didn't matter. He said he signed all the paperwork, and we've donated his tumor after his passing away to Stanford. And now that has become a cell line actually, which is the only one in the world for his this mutation, the wild type mutation. And that gives us a little bit of comfort that he's still here and he's helping other kids. So for me, I only want to do what he started, and I want to, do that to the other parents, and do not want other kids or families to go through what we've gone through. So that is my motivation to get out of bed and do something. And I remember Sandeep was also mentioning once that he had gone to India and he was talking to one of the top hospitals, the director there, and they were asking him that your son is passed away. Why are you concerned? Why do you care? Why do you want to do a foundation?
Mhm.
You want to help others? And that was like, if not us, who else would understand? We're the only ones who know we've gone through this. So who's who better than, and that thought, that we want to change that empathy, that, we want to.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I think the support system, yeah. And
Yeah, I mean, on that note, when I spoke with that doctor, and my response to him was that if it was your kid, wouldn't you? And he nodded, and he basically agreed that there has to be something that we need to do.
so we do know that without money, nothing can be done. So you have this event coming up. This is your second event. You had your first event, I think, last year, and it was a huge success. How much money did you raise in your first event?
Close to about 200,000, I would say.
200,000. Where was that event hosted?
It was in Redwood City, in Crown Plaza there. And
So now we're going real fancy. Now we're going Black Hawk Country Club,
Black Hawk Museum.
Black Hawk Museum in Danville. So I'd like you to talk a little bit about the event, and then we'll have Milan say a few things as well. So tell us a little bit about the event. And again, people, even if you can't go to an event, if you your money still goes for a cause. So just keep in mind, a lot of people think, well, if I can't go, then why am I buying a ticket? It's not about the ticket. Your ticket is going towards a cause.
Right. So the event is on November 17th. It's from 5 p.m. onwards. You can obviously go on our website and buy the ticket. If you are not able to make it to the event, I would still encourage the listeners to donate, or they can also ask their colleagues and talk about the organization and what we went through. And going one step further, if your organization, if your company that you work for, if they have giving programs, then we are definitely interested in those. We would like to hear about them, and perhaps there are grants that we can apply to. And all the money that we get through these grants, that directly goes towards research. So we are pooling the money together for a right cause, whether it is a research trial or an actual research project, and we are connected in that world. So we can definitely bring that money to right people. One of the things that you mentioned earlier is how much is the admin cost? When we spoke with one hospital, we realized that if we give money directly to the hospital, the amount spent is 78% on admin costs, and only 22% goes to the real project. So we wanted to avoid that. So we had to circumvent that through paperwork. Takes a lot of effort, but we were able to do that. And last July, this July, we supported $100,000 trial in UCSF through a consortium called PNOC. So that's basically a consortium that works on brain tumor specifically with all the hospitals in US. So there are multiple ways the people can help us. One other way is the foundation. They can obviously talk about us, but if we get speaking opportunities at their organization, maybe there is a Giving Tuesday, or maybe some webinar going on, we would love to have that speaking opportunity and come to you and talk to you about what we are doing and how it's going to impact all the kids across the globe.
So in terms of the event, Milan and Manisha, in terms of the event, what are good people, if I attend the event, what am I looking forward to? What are the plans for the evening?
The plans for the evening it's basically a nice sit down dinner. Think of it as, you're supporting the childhood cancer cause, but you also get a chance to get out. It could be a date night. It could be a night of trying to do something good besides just donating. You get to learn about childhood cancer. So, we have an event which is all lined up, starting with a cocktail hour for an hour. And then you get to see the Black Hawk Museum, like you said. that's one of a kind museum in all of California that has, like vintage cars that are $1 million. Some of them are $1 million, and they are really in exquisite condition, ready to drive. So you can actually get pictures around it. You can explore the museum. And then in our program, we have the renowned neuro-oncologist, Michelle Mongi speaking. Excuse me. And, she's going to talk about what's happening in the childhood cancer world, especially DIPG. And we get to share stories of Neve and Ronil. And to cap it off, we have Bay Area's favorite, radio jockey and star MC, Marcus D, who's going to help us with the auction. He's going to support the live auction, talk about the event, and just get the mood going for people to enjoy and understand childhood cancer in a more brighter light rather than being somber and kind of blasé about it. So this whole event is going to make a difference in people's outlook for cancer.
And you mentioned options, so I'm sure you're always looking for some good things to auction off. So especially travel agents, I know a lot of travel agents are supporters of Radios and the Geese. If you're listening to this show and you have a round trip ticket to, I don't know, Mexico, India, wherever, that you could contribute, even giving good gifts would be a wonderful way of helping the organization. So as we're getting ready to wrap up in about 10 minutes for our show, I want to go back again to the emotions. So Manisha, how are you coping today?
I think over time, I think there's a cliche, right? That with time, everything becomes easier and better
Yes.
with grief and all. But I don't think with this, I think the pain only grows. I don't think there is but I think over time, the only thing that is there that you can cope the pain. I think right now I have some ways I can cope with the pain. That is the only thing that has become better with time. But the pain, the grief is all there. And I think therapy has really helped me a lot. I'm in therapy since day one he was diagnosed, and that has helped me. And and I think you have to give yourself that time. You have to, you should do what, because this grief, this pain will hit you in waves. There will be days when you're okay, but then something will happen, something will trigger, and you are not okay, and that is okay. And you can do what you want. You can, because I remember early on after Ronnie passed away, I used to always talk about Ronnie all the time. I used to keep on saying his name, and I used to only do things, and I was kind of, in a way, like Sahil was very young. I was like, we should all, if we don't remember, others will not remember. So we have to we used to always keep talking. And in a way, I was subjecting my grief onto them. And that's when later, but in therapy, I realized like Sahil, because he was young, he was grieving positively. He was remembering Ronnie in a more brighter, happier way, versus like I was like, why are you not crying? If I'm feeling sad, then so, but
right.
I think that helped me to understand that everyone grieves in their own way, to each his own. Each parent, even it's their son, the husband, wife could be grieving differently. And that's that is what. And I think over time, I think maybe some mindfulness and some letting myself. And I think one of the important things is taking care of your health, which we've learned is very important. So that is what we understand from this, that you have to take care of yourself.
And Sandeep, in terms of, I know your wife Misha is very actively involved, and I see you going out to the Washington DC a lot. Can you give us a little bit of background on what's happening over there? You're definitely not going to meet Trump or Kamala, auntie, for sure.
No, but he has been very vocal about what happened to our children and how we can change the narrative. And she herself is a researcher, so she has taken up the advocacy role fully and really made connections through that. She's been to the White House 3-4 times actually. One of the last one was literally 2 weeks ago. And there, what we are trying to do is help the states come up with a cancer plan. So just to give you an idea, California did not have a cancer plan that included pediatrics early on. So most of the funding that came went to the, I'm going to call it popular diseases, but the mass diseases like breast cancer or colon cancer. And these cancers already are very well funded in terms of research. there are organizations like St. Jude's that
Yes.
are also, putting
Right.
a lot of money in that. So what about pediatrics? And when we asked that question, we realized that there is nothing.
But I
So
thought
she-
St. Jude's is pediatrics, isn't it?
No, but in California, there is
Okay.
nothing for
Okay.
pediatric cancer.
Okay.
So we started the cancer action plan, and that was one of the stepping stones. And then Manisha and Misha both went to Washington, to Sacramento last year, spoke with the lawmakers there, and then they have been involved at the state level, rallying the support. One of the things that listeners can do is we have a program for school going kids. So either it's high school kids or even college kids, they can come and help with making these lawmakers aware that there needs to be more funding for pediatrics. And the way to do that is either go meet with your local lawmakers, maybe it's your congressman, maybe it's your city council, but rally the support. And we have tools, we have people who will work with the kids.
Okay.
And
wonderful.
yeah,
Do they get, every parent is going to ask, would my high school kid get credits for those
Yeah,
hours or whatever?
absolutely. We have a couple of kids that
Wonderful.
in Pleasanton, and they came to Washington DC with us 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
They went to Capitol Hill. They spoke with the senators. We arrange all of that. We also tell them about the bills that are going to make a change,
Mhm.
and the kids will actually tell it in their own words, and it makes a whole lot of difference than us doing that. So we have I think on the advocacy front, we are trying really hard. And to get back to your question, I think where we go from here is how can we get more funding to specific cancers and specific research that otherwise won't happen.
And in your research, and even Manisha Milan, when you first found out that Ronil had this, of course, you probably hit social media like everyone else. Did you link up with any other families before you met Sandeep here that whose children were affected by?
Yeah,
Yes.
we there is a DIPG community on Facebook that only parents and grandparents can join. It's a
Okay.
whole group. So yeah, and that's where you discuss about the research and
Mhm.
anything else, anything and everything. So that whole community is there, and you have that. And also when we went to Mexico, we were in, I think at any given time in those 18 months, we came across maybe 100 families from all over the world that were there. So we met them in person, and
Wow.
every part of the world, Australia, Europe, US, everywhere. So we're still in touch with all of them, and all of our kids have passed away, but we are here and we're still fighting. And yeah, we do know all the parents.
So do you this is a tough question, but I want to ask it. Has any child been able to survive DIPG? I'll open
I
this out.
can-
Yes.
I can comment on that. So there are chemotherapy trials, and then there are immunotherapy trials.
Mhm.
There is one that's coming out of Stanford, and so far there is one patient that's on this immunotherapy trial, or was. He's been there since last 39 months. The
Okay.
tumor is stable, so it has happened in a couple of cases. Right now, the Stanford team, and I spoke with Dr. Michelle Mongi at an event, and she mentioned that we don't know what is different about this kid that is
He's-
reacting positively rather than, and what can we do to find out. And there are multiple teams working on this, world renowned teams. These are teams that write books. They conduct the fundamental research. So I think we have some great minds working and trying to solve.
So was the tumor that Ronil had and Neve had, because I know when you came on the show and talked about Neve, you said it was like a jelly.
Mhm.
So that's why you can't remove it, because it's just like jelly floating in the brain. So did Ronil have the same thing? Was that the reason why it couldn't be removed?
Yeah, it's not a solid tumor, it's a
Okay.
diffuse tumor, and that's why
Okay.
you cannot do surgery and remove it. And it's in the brainstem. That's where it controls all your involuntary functions like your blood pressure, your heartbeat, your
Mhm.
eating, swallowing, and all. So that is why the kid is totally intact. He understands everything, but he loses all his abilities, his walking, talking, hearing, seeing, and then in the end, they stop living. Yeah.
So we're just a few minutes away, closing. If you could just give some information, Sandeep, about how people can get tickets, and then I want mom and dad to give us a little message out to celebrate Ronil.
Sure. So they can go to our website. It's neevronil.org. So neevronil.org. Once you go on the website, you will see Born Gala invite. And Born, it stands for Because of Ronil and Neve. This is also the name of the show as well,
Right.
you know. So we are trying to memorize them in one way or the other. I would say that, you know, if you can go and
How
donate,
much are the tickets?
they are $200
Okay.
each. And you can also match them with your employer's contribution. That actually doubles the amount.
Right.
So yeah, you can go to the website.
And what's your
Again,
goal this year? How much do you want to raise this year?
200 to 250,000. Yeah, 250 maybe that would be a ideal goal, because then we can support multiple trials. So
Great. In closing, first of all, thank you so much, all of you, for coming on the show and again sharing something that's so personal and also so painful. As we celebrate Ronald today, Milan, your message out to any family that's listening who is possibly going through the same thing but staying silent.
Yes, I'll talk about that, but to briefly touch upon what we're talking for the gala. Sometimes
Yes.
it's hard for people to remember the website. On Google, if you just do Born Gala,
Okay.
everything for
Wonderful.
our site and everything for the gala is going to show up. So that would be easier for people to remember. Secondly, for families who are in the fight or who have been through this journey and reached the end, it's more like, what did you get out of it? It's like, if you don't have your loved one right now, it is what they ended up doing with you, around you, is something that you need to hold on to, because that's what we did. Because things like grief and sadness is going to keep coming around, like it's a loop, but it's how you end up using everything that you lived with your loved ones, your kids, that is going to make a difference. But for families who are in the fight, it's mainly living each moment like it's the only moment. We did not get a chance to do that with Ronil because it hit us so all of a sudden, and we kind of made use of all the 31 months that we had with him. But if I have to tell other parents, even if they are not diagnosed with cancer or whatever, live your life like you really mean it. It's like, don't get caught up in the rat race, because right now everybody in the Bay Area or everywhere else is like, okay, we're just working 9 to 5, but missing out on things that life has to offer. So make sure you go home. If your kid wants to play basketball, do that 5 minutes. You're gonna not regret that. Those are the 5 minutes that 20 years later you'll say, thank God I did it. So please do that.
Yeah. Let's not get too obsessed with doing multiple activities with our children where they're not even with you.
Yes.
Mama, I give you the final closing statement.
Yeah, I think what I've learned from this is like you have to I think live each day as it's there is no tomorrow, right? So
Yes.
because nobody's promised a tomorrow, and when Ronnie was not able to talk, and then he was able to talk, and then he was not able to talk again. So it's like, but when we look back, it's like, okay, you regret that, the time when he was talking, make the most of it, right? Because there will be a day when he will not be able to even talk or smile or do anything. So don't take anything for granted, and cherish the memories that you have, because it will not be the same every day. And I think like Ronnie was, he took everything in his stride. It didn't matter to him he had cancer or anything, because he was like, what is normal? There is nothing normal. It's about how you live, whatever time you have here, what impact you make, and what you can do to help or to leave a mark or help others. So just live your life to the fullest, and things will work out.
Thank you so much, everyone. And Vedika, I see you quite emotional over here. What do you have to say after listening to this show as someone that's, you're part of our show and you're also listening and you're also a mom?
And I have kids around this age.
Yeah.
So when she was mentioning that, I kind of reminded the day in my head, and I could see that how much pushing we do, how much pulling we do with our kids, do this, do that, go to this class, finish your homework. And in that time, they want to tell you about some dinosaur or some dragon, and you so easily ignore that.
Or brush it off so later.
Yes. And or maybe about some new car, some new Cybertruck they want to tell you about, and you're like, it's irrelevant. This is not going to land you up in some UCs. Don't focus on that. And why? Like at the end, like when things like this happen, they are such a big slap on your face that life is going to end like this. And you'll be here, UCs will be here, the degrees will be here, and nothing will matter no more. So thank you so much for that
Thank you.
beautiful reminder to Sandeep. Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Renu, for bringing such lovely people on this show and such important reminders.
Thank you so much.
So guys who have been listening to us right now, Voices was the show, and we have started a new season. We'll be back next week with the new episode, and pediatric cancer is our focus for this season. So to get more information about us, आप Radio Zindagi Facebook page पर जा सकते हैं, and you can go and watch the video. This is Archie Vedika signing off. Keep listening to Radio Zindagi.
Thank you.
Very positive. You guys.